now let's look at the conjoint analysis report or study. Okay, the conjoint analysis report just basically allows you to understand the degree of importance to consumers of a number of attributes. Okay, so at the top you see these bar charts here. It just basically tells you the relative importance of price and a couple of physical characteristics as well. So as you can see here, the brown bar is price, and you can see that price is the most important in all segments, but in terms of relative to other attributes, the numbers kind of change. Okay, typically power is the number 2 most important across all segments, but then things start to change a little bit. You can see with the Explorers, design is not that important, say, compared to the Shoppers. High earners, power is not as important as it is to the professionals. This may help you determine characteristics of brands. A limitation of this report is it doesn't give you battery life, so you'll never really have a good grip on battery life based on this report. Okay, then we have utility charts. So utility charts, if you've ever seen them in economics class, just basically measure the degree of importance on a scale of 0 to 1. 1 doesn't mean anything, there's no label to it, it's just a utility of 1. So the higher the number, the more important or more valuable the particular item is. Okay, so what we have here is we have these little utility charts for design, display, power, and price. Okay, quite simply, the highest point on each of these little curves, you can call them, is going to be the area with the highest utility for Explorers. Okay, so if you're trying to figure out a design level for your product, you can see that 4 is okay, 5 is better, 6 is even better, but 7, utility starts to go down. So as you go from 6, design index of 6, design index to 7, it becomes less interesting to explorers. So it's kind of a double whammy here. It becomes less interesting, but also a design index of 7 is more expensive to make than a design index of 6. So not only are you going to lose some of your customers' interest, but you also are going to have a product that has a higher cost to you. So that's kind of a double whammy. You want to avoid that. Okay. You can see for display, 22 is okay, 28 is better, 34 is even better, 40 is basically the same as 34. So you may want to decide, well, 40 is highest, but just barely. It may not be worth the extra cost and effort to go from display size of 34 to 40, so we may decide to leave it at 34. Okay, power, you've got this sharp increase until you get to 84, and then from there it sharply drops off as you go from 84 to 100. So that should give you some good information there. And then finally, price, you can see here that there is kind of an ideal price. So 283 is fine, 361 has higher utility to consumers, and then it starts to drop off after that. Okay, so the question you may be asking is, why in the world does utility go up as price goes up? Because don't we want to all pay the lowest price possible? And the answer is yes, obviously, but we have knowledge and perceptions in our heads about price, and sometimes we can think of a low price, kind of triggering some sort of alarm. It's like, well, that price is so low, there's got to be something wrong with it, or it's got to be cheaply made. Okay, and so we all do that, and just for different segments, there's a different level of price increase that they can tolerate. Okay, and so you can see these utility charts for all 5 segments. Okay, so should be able to glean some good information from there. I will tell you there's one major limitation with this. It doesn't apply to the design index, but it does apply to the others. Okay, so in order to formulate these utility charts, what they do is they basically ask consumers utility at certain levels of the attribute. What do you think about a battery life of 22? Or, I'm sorry, a display size of 22. What do you think about a display size of 28, and so on and so on. The problem is, if you think about it, not so much with display, but most definitely with power and price, they don't ask every single level of attribute. So they don't, for power, for example, they don't ask 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, and so on and so on. You can see how cumbersome that would be. So in research, you don't do that. So basically, what they do is they come up with 4 arbitrary points, and they ask them those arbitrary points only. Okay, so the challenge here is you don't know if the absolute max utility is in fact 84 for power for explorers, or if it's somewhere between 68 and 84, or between 84 and 100. But because they only ask them those 4 levels, you don't know exactly where that number resides. But it gives you a good idea kind of where to start. Okay, so you can use this report to give you kind of a starting point for determining attribute levels, and then you can go back into other reports, market report for example, and get some other good information. Semantic scales report also will help you as well. Okay.